Frank Nitty here. To the Packers fans and anyone who is watching right now, I really appreciate it. I want to talk about the NFC Championship game. Packers look to take the field in Atlanta again for a trip to the Super Bowl. You know, ever since I made my rant a couple of months ago about how bad the team was playing earlier this season and how Aaron was just off his game, the offense, etc., it's been something else watching this team go on the run they have. It really has. As a Packers fan with high expectations for this team every season, year after year after year, we watch the Packers make the playoffs and then get eliminated in the most heartbreaking fashions. Brett Favre's last pass as a Packer gave the Giants a trip to the Super Bowl. An Aaron Rodgers fumble leads to an Arizona touchdown ending a shootout. The next following year, we win it all, and it was amazing. But it's been 6 years since, and we struggle to get back there every year despite never missing the playoffs since 2008. 15-1 season ends getting embarrassed by the Giants. The next 2 years, we get smacked around by the 49ers. Then we make it back to the title game only to blow a lead in Seattle and allow them to win in overtime. Last year, we lose again in overtime after only a minute or two in. So I'm tired of all the playoff heartbreaks and struggles to get back to Super Bowl. There's no excuse to be the most consistent NFC team to make the playoffs every year, but only one Super Bowl appearance and title to show for it for almost the last 19 years. But wait, hold on a second. What, you think the Falcons aren't thinking the same way? Do you think they don't have a similar feeling? You think Falcons fans aren't frustrated with some playoff losses they had over recent years, even under the Matt Ryan era? The first time Matt Ryan led them to the playoffs, they were one and done. Then they lost to us when we won the Super Bowl. They made it to the title game against Seattle and they lost. So the Falcons have had their own fair share of playoff heartbreaks as well. It may not have been every year because they don't make the playoffs as often as we do, but they still have. So they want to get to the Super Bowl just as badly as the Packers do. I don't think Falcons fans or even the Falcons in general are thinking about 6 years ago when we came in here and beat them. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the here and now. They're thinking about one thing and one goal, and that's to get to the Super Bowl, and that's it. The Falcons haven't looked more ready for a trip to the Super Bowl than they do right now, honestly. Both teams' minds are just set for that one thing, and that's winning. The game itself, it's like I always say, man, I don't like making predictions because anything can happen in the NFL. Some believe the Falcons are just going to blow the Packers out and it'll be a cakewalk. Some wanted the Cowboys to be facing the Falcons right now. They don't think this is a good matchup. Some think it can go the complete opposite. So like I said, you cannot predict these things, but what you can do is you can look up these matchups. You can look at these players. You can look at how these teams stack up against each other. Okay? The long story short is the Packers do not match up against the Falcons at all. The Falcons have the number one scoring offense in the league, while the Packers have one of the worst passing defenses in the league. Who's going to win that fight every time? Our secondary is hurt, beat up, young, and inexperienced. The Packers are going to be looking to take away Julio just like they did during the regular season game. But that doesn't mean the Falcons don't have other weapons. Because let me tell you this, the Falcons don't need Julio Jones to have a big game to win this game. They don't. Because they got other people that Matt Ryan has other guys he can spread the ball around to. He has a run game he can also fall back on if he wanted to. So they don't necessarily need to get the ball in Julio Jones' hands a lot to win this game. They don't. The one thing they do need to do is keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. And we'll get more into that later. Okay? So like I said, our secondary is bad. Gunter had an awful game against Dez Bryant. Like I said in my last video, Dez Bryant made Gunter his bitch. Damaris Randall, he is not good in coverage. We already established that. Quentin Rollins is still hurt, so I don't even expect him to be out there on the field. Micah Hyde is probably the only guy in that secondary who can make a play sometimes. Morgan Burnett, he's hurt, so we don't know, he's going to play. Clinton Dix, he's probably been the most consistent defensive back we had all year. And that's just at the safety position. At the corner position, we're so thin, and we don't match up against any of these receivers. So it's going to be a nightmare watching the Falcons out there in offense every time. Every time they drop back to pass, I'm just going to be holding my breath. Because on the defensive line, we have been struggling so much to get to the quarterback lately, it's not funny. Nick Perry is our leading rusher, but right now he's hindered a little bit by the club on his hand. Clay Matthews hasn't done shit all season. Judas Peppers is old. So we don't really have anybody that's really getting to the quarterback. So pressure against these quarterbacks lately have been completely non-existent. So you're going to give a great quarterback like Matt Ryan all day to throw against a secondary that's terrible. That is a nightmare. Okay? Absolute nightmare. And Dom Capers doesn't blitz often. And it doesn't mean blitz will work even if he does. Because we've seen it. It didn't work against the Cowboys. It's not going to work against the Falcons. So, just prepare yourself for that. Now I want to get to a point of, can you imagine if the Giants wide receivers had played better? Particularly Odell Beckham Jr.? That game could have gone a lot more differently and maybe a win for the Giants. We could be looking at the playoffs could have turned so differently had the Giants maybe had won. If their wide receivers had played better, because Eli didn't play bad. Their wide receivers did. Despite the penalties and misfortunes they faced, Dak Prescott threw for over 300 yards. Zeke ran for over 100 yards. Dez Bryant went off for over 100 yards in receiving. Beasley had a good game. Witten had a good game. Imagine if they didn't shoot themselves in the foot so much, just like the Giants. They can very well be talking about the Falcons visiting them instead of us visiting the Falcons. So yeah, the Packers defense sucks. We all know that. But one thing they've been managed to do on this run is create turnovers. That's been the biggest difference. Not their play, because their play is still the same. But they've been able to create turnovers and get the ball back to the offense. So you might be saying, wait a minute. If I'm saying all this about our defense, how in the hell are we in the NFC Championship game? Simple. Because of number 12. Aaron Rodgers. It's just amazing how much this man carries this football team. Despite never having a complete team, despite having an awful first half of the year, unreliable defense, no run game, wide receivers who struggle sometimes to get open, yet he does it all and gets us this far. If you're a Aaron Rodgers hater, like Skip Bayless for example, you can go fuck off when you look at everything this man has to deal with compared to other quarterbacks. With number 12 on the field, as a Packers fan, you never feel like you're beaten just yet, or they have no shot. All those playoff losses I talked about, what was one of the main things they had in common? Number 12 was on the sideline. He wasn't out there on the field. He had to watch our playoffs end on the sideline. Never once taken the field twice in overtime. You thought maybe that game against the Cowboys was going to go overtime, and I thought so too, and I didn't want it to, because I knew that it would probably end exactly the way it did before, with Aaron never having a shot to get on the field. So instead, he had his last-minute shot right there in regulation, and what he do? He made an amazing pass down the sideline to Jared Cook that set us up for that game-winning field goal. So sure, Aaron Rodgers may not have that many game-winning drives under his belt like a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning, or hell, even Eli Manning for that matter. But you can bet your ass the Falcons or any other team aren't going to want him on the field to even give him the opportunity. So you know Aaron Rodgers and that offense is going to do whatever they can to beat the Falcons. It's just as simple as that. You got a great quarterback protected by a great offensive line. Let's not forget those guys. How much time they give Aaron to throw the ball and find somebody to get open. And you got receivers now who are getting more comfortable in finding their role in the offense. So they're going to bring it. You know, I say all that shit about our defense. The Falcons' defense isn't good either. Don't let that game against the Seahawks fool you. The Falcons' defense isn't really that good. So I don't expect Aaron and the offense to struggle against their defense at all. I expect this game to be a complete shootout. So despite all that crap I just said about not predicting games, the one thing you can really expect is the fact that this game is going to be a shootout. There is going to be no defense in this game. This is going to be just two teams looking to outscore each other to get to the Super Bowl. And just like I said earlier this year, whichever team is the last one to score, that's going to be the team that wins and gets their ticket to the Super Bowl. To get the ticket to the big dance and try to bring home a Lombardi trophy. So Falcons fans, I have nothing against any of you guys. I have nothing against your team. Nothing like that. But we're in the NFC Championship game and we want to win just as much as you guys do. So, only thing that's left is just see what happens in the game. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to make any more predictions. You know, any given Sunday, we just gotta see what happens, man. And obviously, if the Packers lose and get eliminated again, it's gonna be very disappointing and heartbreaking. We already know it. This year, despite how much we struggle to get back to this point. But if they do pull it off, man, this will just again further illustrate this amazing run they going on with that great quarterback behind the center. But that's all I got. I'm sorry for how long this went on. Thanks for watching. If you did, show some love. I appreciate it. Go Packers.